Hey gang, it's Azza. So I was just talking about this, and we're gonna do this video. I minimized it not because of my face, and I don't want you to see it. I said I'm very emotional right now, but it's totally so you can get a better look of this. And again, it's literally hand in hand. I'm gonna try to shut up as much as I can. I don't know how I feel about doing a whole 18-minute video. I may stop at a portion. I don't know. I don't know. I just, in terms of copyrights, and I don't want to take, I want you all to watch this video. Um, and I don't want to take that away, so I don't know how I'm going to navigate this, but I'm going to try without much more, and I'm going to try to be as quiet as I can. Let's launch into this.
The average lifespan of an American is 80 years, and an 80-year-old today was 10 when World War II ended, 4 when it began. A soldier who saw battle would have to be in his late 80s at least today. Generals, political leaders,
I'm going to mute it and
the decision makers of the war, few are still with us. And over the past few decades, we've seen authors and filmmakers rush to capture stories from survivors before this connection of memory is lost. This project is not about individual war stories, and it's not about...
I want to put a little context to this. I have autistic issues, and one of the ways I learn is not by verbal, not by reading, and not by visual. It's literally everything. It's sometimes things fall into place. Like I mentioned in another video, sometimes you don't realize something because you're talking about it in words. And seeing this hits me very hard.
About survivors. We're going to tally up the tens of millions of people whose lives are cut short by the war, and see how these numbers stack up to other wars in history, including trends in recent conflicts. We'll be counting soldiers and civilians separately.
A picture's worth 1,000 lives.
Each of these figures represents 1,000 people who died. Civilians were of all walks of life, whereas military deaths were almost entirely men.
Male privilege.
The average age was about 23. In most battles, for every 1,000 soldiers killed, there are more than 1,000 who were injured. The word casualty can be confusing because in military speak, it often includes both deaths and injuries, and anything else that takes a soldier out of service. Here, we're just counting the deaths, and we'll begin with American soldiers.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to speed it up, and I hate to do it, but it'll help two ways. Me get through it a little quicker, to not watch the whole video, and I say please go and spend the 18 minutes and watch this. I am begging you with all of my heart. Let's try this. I'm just going to see. I've never done it this way, so it's going to be so weird. Especially with these clicks. When I get to Russia, it's going to break my heart.
Over 400,000 died. Most of the deaths occurred in the European theater, fighting the Nazis. And about a quarter were in the Pacific, fighting the Japanese. When you put them on the timeline, you see that casualties were the heaviest at the end of it. The war began on September 1st, 1939. But the U.S. wasn't willing to join the fight until Pearl Harbor, 2 years in.
37, when they invaded
The deaths increased
Poland.
drastically on D-Day, when the Allies invaded Normandy. One of the most tragic moments of the war was on D-Day at Omaha Beach, where 2,500 Americans fell. So about the same number of U.S. soldiers died on this single beach landing as the entire 13 years of the recent war in Afghanistan. The bloodiest battle in the Pacific was Okinawa, which lasted 82 days, during which 12,500 Americans died. About 5,000 of these deaths were at sea from kamikaze attacks.
Marines and sailors.
Now let's look at some other countries, starting with Europe. Germany started World War II when it invaded Poland. Poland ultimately lost 200,000 soldiers in the war. Most died after the invasion while the country was occupied by Germany and the Soviet Union.
I've done videos and talked to people. Again, so for some context, My grandma came here from Poland, and so did my grandfather. And it's just, I've been called Nazis. I'm not laughing from a pity, and it sounds weird because I'm emotional, but I laugh. I literally think it's hilarious. That again, these numbers when you hear and people will say because I like Trump, I'm these guys. These are my people, and this is just the beginning of the numbers.
Germany, meanwhile, lost just 16,000 in the invasion of Poland. The Nazis went on to invade and conquer other countries, including
This
Denmark,
is just
Belgium,
terrible. I didn't know
France,
about
Greece,
this.
and Yugoslavia. France surrendered, but after losing 92,000 soldiers in the Battle of France.
Jeez.
Over 200,000 ultimately fell, which includes deaths in POW camps, French colonies, and other fighting. Yugoslavia suffered almost 500,000 military deaths. The initial invasion brought relatively few casualties on both sides, but the deaths mounted under Nazi occupation due to guerrilla fighting, civil conflict, and mass executions. The Nazi invasions were swift, with relatively few German losses. Even the Nazi commanders expressed surprise at their success. And then we have the United Kingdom and the United States, who were not invaded but took the fight to the Nazis. Britain lost about the same number of soldiers as the US, which includes the British colonies. Germany lost about 500,000 soldiers fighting the US and Britain in what is known as the Western Front, which took place in France and Belgium.
If you get a moment, maybe I'll try to post it below when I find it. I have a video about why I don't hate Nazis. Again, as a Polish American, about why I don't hate. Again, I'm not saying I love Nazis. I'm not saying I love Nazism, because I do not. It's abhorrent. It's terrible. But again, these are conversations that should be had. I'll try to remember to post it if I do forget, and it's important to you. Please watch it. I'm sorry for the sniffles. It's gross.
But most Nazi soldiers died in the Eastern Front. Germany's unsuccessful invasion of the Soviet Union.
These
numbers are staggering. The most famous battle of the Eastern Front, and perhaps the turning point of the European war, was Stalingrad. The German Sixth Army successfully took Stalingrad, but then got surrounded by the Soviets and cut off from food and ammunition. 500,000 Nazis would ultimately die in Stalingrad.
I think I'm going to stop it before
Another 100,000 were taken prisoner, of which 6,000 never returned. POWs had a low survival rate throughout World War II, and it was particularly grim in the
Pacific Theater.
When you include these POWs, roughly the same number of Germans died in Stalingrad as all the Western Front fighting against France, the UK, and the EU. And though Stalingrad was a victory for the Soviets, they suffered almost twice as many losses as Germany. The Soviet Union would eventually defeat the once unstoppable German army, killing 2.3 million Nazi soldiers.
Sorry about the mic.
But winning the war came at a cost.
Yeah. Male privilege. There's no love lost between Poles and Russians. Those clicks and ticks are just heartbreaking. All those men had a name. Each click is 1,000 names.
8.7 million is the official tally by the Russian military, a hotly disputed number. Some studies have calculated as many as 14 million dead. To complete the count of European military deaths, we need to add German deaths from other fronts, including the North and Africa, as well as deaths from other Axis powers allied with the Nazis, Hungary, Romania, and Italy. When you put these European military deaths on the timeline, it looks like this. You can now interact with the chart to learn more. Pause the narration if you'd like more time.
I've never done that. I never make it.
And now we switch to civilian deaths in Europe. Six million Jewish people were killed in the Holocaust. If you separate this by country, you see that about half, 2.7 million, were Polish. 700,000 were Soviets, followed by Hungary and 17 other countries. Broken down another way, about half of the 6 million were killed in the concentration camps. Over 1 million died in Auschwitz. Most were killed in the gas chambers. Others died from starvation, exhaustion, disease, and other forms of execution. The second most deadly camp was Treblinka, which was exclusively an extermination camp, set up to look like a train station. Mobile killing groups killed 1.4 million Jews. Like with the gas chambers, men were killed first to reduce the risk of revolt.
Male privilege.
The Holocaust also includes non-Jewish deaths. Between 130,000 to 500,000 Roma, then called gypsies, were killed. The numbers are disputed. About 250,000 people with disabilities were killed. Homosexuals, Catholics, and other groups were also exterminated, but their numbers were relatively small. Some historians say that other civilian deaths should go under the label of Holocaust. About 2 million non-Jewish Poles were killed under German occupation, some of which were sent to the gas chambers at Auschwitz. When you combine civilian and military deaths, over 16% of the total Polish population died in World War II.
This is the emotion that is behind. Again, this video, this is me getting it out, and I get things out, so when I have conversations with people, this doesn't happen. But the anger, the frustration, the love, the sacrifice, that's what, when I argue with people, when they call me a Nazi to my face, 16% of the total Polish population died. And it's very hard for me not to resort to the profanities and the personal attacks and insults. And that's why. That's what's behind that, when people will say white people don't know suffering.
Which is the highest percentage of any country, but not the highest in total death count. The Soviet Union again tops that list, losing at least as many civilians as it did soldiers, somewhere between 10 and 20 million. A particularly dark moment for the Soviet Union was the siege of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. German forces surrounded Leningrad before civilians could be evacuated. Supplies, including food, were cut off for 2.5 years. 1.5 million people died as a result, mostly from starvation, mostly civilians. Stalin's cruelty towards his own people is partly responsible for these numbers. He often didn't allow civilians to evacuate from cities, thinking it would cause the soldiers protecting them to fight harder. About 1 million Soviets died in Stalin's own labor camps, called the Gulag. Just about every country suffered civilian losses, especially countries who were invaded. While many died as a result of so-called collateral damage, the biggest numbers occurred when it was no accident. Civilians were exterminated, purposely fired upon or bombed, used as human shields, or intentionally deprived of food. The intentional killing of civilians was done by most warring parties, including the United Kingdom and the United States. The United Kingdom was spared of a land invasion, but still lost 60,000 civilians, largely from German air raids or blitzes, often directed at civilian population centers.
Keep calm.
The UK did the same to German cities at a much greater magnitude, causing about 10 times the number of deaths. But most German civilian deaths came from the ground at the late stage of the war. When the Nazi regime collapsed, civilians living in occupied regions had to desperately flee from the advancing Soviet army. Rapes were widespread, and death estimates range from 600,000 to 3 million.
Trying to surrender to Americans.
Let's step back and see where we are with the totals. We just counted about 20 million civilian deaths in Europe. If you add this to the European military deaths we already covered, it brings us to over 40 million. Then we have the Asian theater.
And I'm going to stop it there. I, again, implore you all to please go watch this video. Oh, that was right there. And you can see this part is what led me here today. So I want to talk about two things. So if you're done with that and watching it, this has only to do with Azseth for the most part. One, what we don't talk about. These are things, like I said, tangible things we don't talk about. The long peace. We talk about war and the cost of war, but we don't talk about the cost of peace and maintaining it, and the numbers that come with peace. How do you measure peace? In fact, that he even asked that verbatim. How do you measure peace? What do you quantify it? In years and lives saved? Because those years and lives saved become irrelevant once you open up windows and close windows and look from different perspectives. And these are things we need to talk about. Perspective is so important. I don't want to get too much into that. Again, that's another video, another day. And I want to talk about my emotional state, because this is something that I think a lot of people misinterpret, understandably so. I consider myself unique in this regard, in that, I don't mind being overwhelmed with emotions. I think what a lot of men specifically, but people in general, fail at or don't understand the dynamic of emotion is that emotions are irrational and illogical, in that you can't control them the way you'd like to control most things. It's a loose thing at best. You generally, it's difficult to make yourself unangry, or to make yourself angry, or to make yourself jealous. And when you get there, you can't just, I'm not sad, I'm not happy or I am happy, whatever the thing is. So what I've learned to do is just embrace, like, that moment of emotion is going to be gone because I haven't felt anything that I've felt in the past. I don't feel it now. It's come and gone, maybe in different things elicited certain reactions, but I'm not angry about the same thing I was 13 years ago. I'm not happy about the same thing I was 4 years ago, and so on. And men specifically, where we fail in dealing with emotion is we try to control it. And sometimes men specifically, we want to control it. That's one thing I think men deal with more than women is the grasp of control all around us. And emotions, you can't, because they don't work that way. And then we've men fall in a trap in that regard. So I'm angry. I want to hit something. I know. And then so they're already mad. Now they want to attack that anger. So now they're mad and aggressive and you can't. So now they also feel like they failed. Now they're madder because they failed and they're still angry and they still want to be unangry. And it just, now if they were just like, man, I'm mad. I'm really, really mad. Now I'm going to go about my business and just try not to be a jerk to everybody in the process and control what comes out of my mouth. 5 minutes from now, I'll be fine. Those people will probably to be nice to me because I'm not rude to them and I'll be in a better mood. But most people are like, oh, mad, let's go. So I take a step back from my emotional state, deal with the emotions, but then look like what was going on before I was angry or sad or depressed or euphoric. I don't like to make big decisions when I'm happy or riding high because you don't think things through necessarily. Again, not just saying a positive position, but like, I mean, euphoric. Something's really happy. I'm so excited. Oh, that sounds awesome. So I'm going to take my time and not do anything. That's how I do. And so when I'm in that moment, I take a step back and be like, what would I have thought about 10 minutes before I got that euphoric high about I wanted to buy something or do something, or that impulse to punch that person or to, give that person whatever, who knows? That's how I operate. A lot of people are very intimidated or put off, or they don't understand my emotional state. They look and say, "Oh, he's got depression." And again, I understand where people are coming from, and that's why I kind of put some of these disclaimers out there. But I also put it out there because hopefully it helps men struggling with anger, control issues, not just feeling like the world is out of control around them. Like, yeah, it probably is. So now start to focus on the things that you can control. Start to push the things that you can't kind of out of your peripherals because you can interact with them, but interact with them in a way that is on your own terms, in a way that is positive for you, that doesn't create frustration, anxiety, stress, or don't interact with it at all if all that comes out of interacting it is those stresses and stressors and anxieties and negativity. But once it takes, I guess, I don't know if it's self-awareness, a lot of self-reflection and understanding what I consider my constant emotional, intellectual me versus the overly emotional me. A lot of times I shut down when I get emotional, and it's shut down to me in a way in that I know I'm angry, upset, frustrated, happy, whatever. And so I say I'm not acting. I'm just going to take a step back. And what I try to do is make a video or talk to someone, get it out, hear my words, watch my words. If I make a video, I'm like, yeah, well, that doesn't make sense now. Why did I think that? I can't believe I was going to do that. I don't know how I ended up here with this video. I'm going to post the link of it below. I'll try to remember to post the video about Nazism below. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope this did something for somebody. Some kind of positivity that we need. Helps you look, shift your perspective and just look at things a little differently. Even if it's just occasionally seeing a little bit more positivity. Hopefully that snowballs for you. Check out the long piece. Check out this video. I think I'm done for the day, but who knows? Thought I was done on my first video. Love you all. Take it easy. Go easy, gang.